ito yung labas. Malulobat na pala ako. Punta tayo sa zoo. Meron pa silang zoo. Yeah.
Ararat rin.
Mag-charge muna tayo.
May camel rides.
Ha?
Ararat.
Ah, may camel rides. Ararat Ridge Zoo. Hindi ko alam kung ano yan. So, teka lang. Hindi ako malobat. Teka lang. Yung isa na budol. Ang bilis kasing mag-oo. Hindi nagtatanong. Ang mahal ng picture niya. Yan. Ah, ako oy. Ah, kailangan ni si ma'am. Zoo etiquette. May zoo etiquette. Mga camels, dami naman. Push to enter.
Drinks out loud. Just one at a time or two at a time.
A deer, di ko eh. Kangaroo. Kangaroo. Gusto ka? Natik ka pa. Yan, mga kangaroos. Kangaroos. Hi, mate. How are you, mate? Hi, mate. Taga-Australia niya, taga-Australia. Bawi po dahil ka diri. Sloth. Ano ni sloth? Sa magbasa ni? Two-toed sloth. Pwede dahil magsulod.
Pwede ka
Ang uban nagasulod. Ah, ikaw gusto ka? Di na lang.
Kangaroo na mo.
Ha?
Sa taon ka na. Pwede na, sasalad ka.
Susunod pa ka para bawi ato.
But we're gonna, I think, head over.
So papasok kami kasi pwede namang pumasok. La.
Yes.
Observe pa man ko. Wala ko guys. Observe na.
Make sure you guys stay on the pathway, alright?
Yeah. Pathway lang, Fex. Yan. Pasok tayo. Actually, sulit ba? Pwede din mo kaon lang dira, Fex. Oh, alo, kagwapo sa soup. Man, Fex. Na sila, madam, Fex. Oh. Halo, bilo ito sa ila, oh. Saan ay mga adobo. Hari, ah. Kangaroo. Hi, mate. Di daw sila. Magsumbag sa imong nawong daw.
Wala din na kangaroo sa isa.
Wala. Wala yung kangaroo dito. Ano lang.
Ano naman?
Sa Australia lang na siya.
Really, what I mean is...
Sa Australia lang.
Magbuhi tayo sila sa forest.
Bawal ka ko nito.
Pwede tayo... Ikat ka.
Kapoy ka masig alcohol. Tugunit naman may anong bata pa.
Magamit na ka.
Oo, itong bata ni. Ikaw gusto ka? Gani. O mag-hand sanitizer lang ka. So, kabalo ka naman sa ito. Okay na ako na tayo mga... Kung naatay mga anak, paguniton, gina ko. Wala man. Kangaroo watching. Walang kangaroo. Siguro napagawas. Kainit.
Ano?
Ala, asa ni oh? Lemur. Mauning lemur. Nawa ko kung nakikita nyo, guys. Asa ni? Ay, tagan kayo na si Delma. Napay egg. Crane. You little crane. Ala siya. Naday water. Hello. Kailangan may tubig. Honey. Ay, camel ride. Kapoy na tag camel ride, no? Benturo. Asa sila? Wala man. Sina diri? Ara siya, oh. Benturong. Saan siya? Saan siya makita? Southeast Asia. Tato ade ay. Para kita anak. Porcupine. Hello, lapo kita ane ba? Ara siya.
We had a book about porcupines, and it said it shot a lion in the face. Oh, and it poked up its eye out.
Sakit biya niya yung ano.
I'm not. I'm
Oh, may camels din sila. Kakamis din ang camels, ha. UAE kay ginaano na lang. Gusto ka pa kagit itong camels? For 11 years ni mo gina. Ay, ano, oh. Nice. Pwede ay bakto. Dito yung camels area. Hindi ko na ako magpunta kasi marami namang camels doon. 11 years namin tinitingnan. Mauning fossil find. Papa po, grabe gini ka educational talks, no? Patay na ilang. Camel, garo. Ganito pala mag-find ng ano, gold. Char lang. Ayan o, mga stones. Fine stones. Oh. Ano, oh. Animal actor stage. Tanaw ka? May mga movie. Today shows. Zuga Talent. Tara kaya ta? Ang sa oras? Dali tao kainit. Yan. Wala pa, hindi pa nag-start.
One of our speakers, and I'm really excited to get to speak about some really exciting animals with you guys today. The theme for our show is Zoos Got Talent. So we are meeting some very talented animals that have been gifted naturally by their creator with intelligence and with some incredible designs that allow them to interact with their environment, to hide from predators, or to hunt other animals, or to defend themselves. They have some pretty incredible designs that we can see through them as their creator has made them. Now we also are going to look at some animals that we've been able to do a lot of training with. So some of these animals have talents that are learned talents. Some of these guys we've been able to work with a lot and develop relationships with our animals, which is very important working at a zoo. We want to make sure that our animals are happy and healthy. So being able to work directly with them one-on-one and doing training with them is a great way to keep them enriched mentally and physically. And also is really helpful for us as their keepers to make sure they're doing okay medically and that they're just staying really active. So we're going to meet some of these animals today. We're going to take about 20 to 25 minutes as we walk through each of these critters, and we are going to walk one of them around the room. So we do ask that you guys please do not try to reach out and touch them. So we want to make sure that the handlers can focus on the animals. We're going to walk one of them around so you guys can get a real good look at them. And then at the very end of our program, we are going to have an opportunity for you guys to come up and to ask some questions and to get a little bit of a closer look at some of the animals. All right, well, I think we're ready to begin. So we're going to start off pretty small. We're actually going to meet an invertebrate. But before we bring them out, does anyone know the definition of an invertebrate? What do they not have?
Backbone.
Kind of a backbone, yeah. So we're meeting an insect. We're actually meeting a colony of insects. This is our colony of Philippine leaf insects.
Pilipinas.
These guys are pretty cool. So we've got some really amazing features on their body. We can see that these guys all look just like leaves. Maybe give me one more second.
Si kababayan pala to. calves.
Alright, so we're gonna walk them around so you guys can get a closer look. But these guys come from the island of the Philippines. There's actually about 30 different species of leaf insects around that area. But we can see that they look exactly like leaves. And that is an intentional design by the creator to help them to blend into their environment.
Ito kabaluan na.
Word we use when an animal has colors or patterns that help them blend in.
Ayun ko lang po yung
Yeah,
alam.
camouflage. And these guys are masters of camouflage. They don't look like bright green leaves, but they also are able to shed their exoskeleton. That's a process called molting that insects do to grow. And when they shed that outer covering of their body, they can actually pop out being a completely different color. So all of them look a really beautiful green coloration right now, but as they start to get older, they're going to start turning different shades of red and orange and brown because they're trying to mimic the leaf cycle or the life cycle of the leaves around them. So as fall comes in and all those leaves start dying in the environment around them, they're going to start turning those colors to look like a dying leaf to blend into the ones around them. I think one of the coolest things these guys can do is actually molt with a bite mark out of the side of their abdomen to make it look like another animal has already taken a bite out of the leaf. So that is an amazing feature that God has given them. But this camouflaging ability actually goes on to those offspring as well.
Mura siya
The leaf
gano,
insects
nimtree.
lay their eggs. They look like tiny little seeds. And they actually have fibrous hairs all around those
oo,
eggs so
siguro
that when
na.
an animal brushes up against a cluster of eggs and passes by them,
ara
they're going to
siya.
get caught inside
Pero
their
kita,
fur.
ano,
And that animal's
sa
going to walk
kinagikan,
around in the
Palawan?
environment and actually distribute those eggs
Palawan
to
or
new
anong guro na,
locations.
Negros?
So that when those eggs hatch into nymphs and turn into adults themselves, they're able to colonize a completely
Abe,
new part of
research?
the forest
Unsa to?
away from where their parents were. So that's really helpful because that allows them to easily go across and
Shit,
disperse
taga
across a
Pilipinas
wide
daw,
range,
nakabala.
a wide area without having any fear of accidentally inbreeding with their parent generation. So that's really helpful for them. One of my also favorite facts
Hi,
about these guys is that
kababayan.
they are a nocturnal animal. So in the daytime, do you think these guys are going to be moving around? No, they're trying to look like all the other leaves like them. And there is actually a way to act like a leaf, if you didn't know. There is a way to act like one. What they will do is if they all of a sudden feel a gust of wind or maybe like a little spritz of water, they're going to freeze, stick their hands straight in the air, and then shake. And they're trying to look like a leaf that is rustling in the wind or being rustled by environmental
siya
factors
masulti na.
around them. And so that is really fun. It's actually very helpful for us as their keepers because they live in an enclosure with about 100 leaf insects and they all are very hard to find. So we just take a
Wow.
little spray bottle, we can give them a little spritz or we can blow into the enclosure and they'll start shaking. So it's very helpful for us. But these guys are nocturnal, but they're not always nocturnal. In fact, when those eggs hatch and they're those nymph babies, they're
Grabe,
actually
no? Naday
diurnal.
na,
They live in the
nakabaluan
daytime.
na.
They're navigating, they're eating, they're growing. But as they get older, their eyes actually start to become more complex and they become more sensitive to the radiation from the sun. So they actually switch that cycle to go to being nocturnal as they become an adult. Now we're going to meet our next animal. We're actually going to stay in the forest up in the trees. This next animal is also an arboreal species, so he lives his whole life in the trees. But we're jumping away from the Philippines and
Wow.
instead going to South America in the rainforest. Now you're going to have a really hard time finding this guy in the daytime because he's also nocturnal. During the day, he's normally going to be curled up in a ball sleeping inside of a tree hollow. But at night, he gets up and he starts to explore the environment and forage for food. So we're going to see if he's ready with his handler here in just a minute. Sometimes it takes a moment for him to wake up and rouse. All right, this is Mr. Tiki, and Tiki is called a kinkajou. Now these are really cool animals. They are perfectly designed for the trees. And we're going to take a look at some of his features to show that. So first off, you can see Tiki has some pretty long, sharp claws. Those are excellent for gripping onto tree trunks, for maneuvering around those branches. He also has the ability to rotate his ankles 180 degrees forwards and backwards. Our wrists can't do that, and that would be pretty painful. But Tiki can do it easily, and that allows him to climb upside down and all over the place. He also has a prehensile tail. So you guys can see he's got his tail wrapped around Shelly's neck, and that allows him to actually hang upside down by the tail and swing around in the environment. So he is really fun to watch maneuvering around his enclosure because when we hang up enrichment for him and he has to try to find it and climb up to it, he uses that tail to swing all the way around his enclosure. That is really amazing. Now, these guys are pretty good foragers. Does anyone have a guess of what type of food Tiki the kinkajou might be going after in the rainforest in the trees? Yeah, berries. They've got some fruits. What else? Maybe tree leaves. What else is he going to eat? You can shout an answer out if you want. Insects, yeah. What else? What's another sort of protein other than insects in the trees? Birds. So he's actually going to go after bird eggs because those are easier to catch than a whole bird. He has a big appetite for eggs. In fact, he here loves hard-boiled eggs. He's a big fan. But these guys mostly have a huge sweet tooth. These guys are excellent foragers. They'll go after nectar, tree sap, honey, and flowers. And God has actually designed them with a 5-inch long tongue so that they can go inside of cracks and crevices and honeycomb to get out the sweet fruit that they want to go after. Now he also is called an unintentional pollinator, and that's because he does love flowers a lot, and he will stick his whole head inside of a flower, he'll get it covered in plant pollen, and when he takes his head out and puts it into another flower, he unintentionally pollinates that other flower. So these guys are really important for the thriving flora of the rainforest, and a very important creature today.
Okay.
Now we've been able to work a lot with Tiki. It's really easy to work with animals when you quickly figure out their favorite reinforcer. Has anyone noticed what food we are feeding Tiki right now?
Seeds.
We're feeding him some banana. Tiki is going to do anything for a slice of banana. That is his favorite fruit, hands down. We tried papaya for a little bit, definitely didn't hit the mark, but banana does. He's a huge fan. So we like to give our animals the treats that we know they enjoy because that makes training really enjoyable for them. Tiki has been trained to wear a harness, and he's also trained to walk around on our body, kind of mimicking like a tree, a way he would climb around on a tree. And so we use a reinforcer he enjoys to help do that training here and for him to be an ambassador for you guys to see. Now, one reason why we like to showcase kinkajous is because they're a pretty incredible animal. But a lot of people actually try to get kinkajous as pets. And do you guys think a kinkajou would make a good pet? No, they do not. In fact, Tiki here is a rescued pet. One of the reasons why we don't advise for kinkajous to be a pet is because these guys are wild animals. They have wild instincts. He also is incredibly messy. These guys are scent markers, which means he rubs his body and his booty on everything. And he's going to scent mark things and claim his territory, and it gets really, really gross, and these guys are very smelly. He also goes to the bathroom wherever and whenever he wants, and he has some pretty sharp teeth and claws. So kinkajous are best left in the wild, but unfortunately a lot of them are taken into the pet trade, just like Tiki was. And he is a rescued pet. His owners decided they did not want him anymore. And unfortunately that is a very common occurrence for kinkajous. Only about 10 to 15% of all kinkajous adopted into families stay with that original family their whole life. And that's a really unfortunate statistic. And the reason for that is we are caretakers of God's world. God has actually given us dominion over everything in the world. And that includes all the animals. And because we have dominion over everything, that means that we have a responsibility to practice good ownership with the animals we take into our care. In fact, Proverbs 12:10 says, "The righteous man cares for the needs of his animals." And when we take an animal into our home and we cannot provide for its needs and we abandon it, that is not practicing good stewardship. So I want to encourage you guys, if you are looking to take an animal into your home, there's a lot of incredible animals in shelters like dogs and cats that make incredible pets. Whereas those wild ones, they require a lot of extra special care and attention, and they are a lifelong commitment. So I want to encourage you guys, if you are looking to do some research into the animals you can bring into your home. All right, well, I think we're ready for our next animal. So we're actually going to make a bit of a big jump, and we're going to go over to Australia.
Wow.
We're going to meet a pretty large animal. Now, we're going to see if she's ready to come out. Sometimes she gets a little shy to come out, is a little slow to come on the stage, so I might stall for just a minute. But has anyone had a chance to head over to our kangaroo walkabout?
Yes.
All right, a few of you guys. We have some pretty amazing macropods out there. We have kangaroos and wallabies, and we're hopefully going to meet one of those macropods today. So I'm going to just take a peek down here and see if she's ready. Oh, she's on her own time right now. She's coming, so we're gonna see if she wants to come on stage. Here we go. This is Miss Naima, and Naima is called a red kangaroo. Naima is actually the oldest of our kangaroo mom here at the zoo. Hello, Naima. Naima is 8 years old, and she is a mama. So she's got her baby Emerald out there in the zoo, but Emerald's all grown up now, and we've been able to develop a really incredible relationship with Naima the kangaroo here. She's an incredibly sweet girl. So we've been able to do some harness training with Naima, getting her really comfortable interacting with her keepers, and she will go for walks with us when she has her harness on, and that allows us to bring her on here on stage to be a good ambassador for her species. Now she is a macropod, and macropods, there's quite a few of them. We've got kangaroos, wallabies, wallaroos, quokkas, patamalons, tons of macropods. But one thing that they all have in common is that macropod translates to Bigfoot. So if you didn't think you'd see Bigfoot here in Kentucky, here is a Bigfoot. She uses those feet to help her maneuver around the
Gamay lang kaya
environment.
ni sa
Now, does
siguro
anyone
dito
know
tayo
the
na.
main form of locomotion for a kangaroo? I heard you say hopping. That is incorrect. They actually crawl more than they hop. And that's because crawling is easier to do when they maneuver around the environment. That's how they forage for food, that's how they explore. But if a kangaroo wants to go faster than 10 miles per hour, they are going to start hopping. And these guys are really fast. Does anyone have a guess of how many miles per hour Naima can get up to when she's hopping at top speeds? You can shout an answer out if you want. 30 miles per hour? 30, 25? It's actually about 35 to 40 miles per hour. She's incredibly fast. And at that speed, Naima can actually jump a distance of 30 feet in one jump. So that is an incredible strength that God has put into their muscles. She uses her tendons really well. So that's a great way to escape predators and to maneuver around the environment. Now one of my favorite features about the kangaroos is that these guys are also called marsupials. And does anyone know what a marsupial has? Has a pouch, yeah. So Naima does have a pouch. Naima is found one of the kangaroos we have here at the zoo. We can show off that pouch there in the middle of her body. It's not as noticeable for some kangaroos, but because Naima is a mom, her pouch got a little saggy, as they do, so you can see them a little bit. But do you guys know of any other marsupials around in the world? What marsupials come to mind? I heard koala, yeah. We have Tasmanian devil, we have the wallabies, the kangaroos, sugar gliders are marsupials. Does anyone know the one marsupial here in the United States? The opossum, yeah, so we have lots of marsupials around. And one of the reasons why the pouch is so important for a marsupial is because they have incredibly short gestation periods, which is a fancy word for pregnancy period. In fact, Naima here would only be pregnant for about 30 days with a joey. Her pregnancy is so short that when that baby is born, you can imagine it's pretty small. Showing me with your hands, does anyone have a guess of how big the baby is when it's born? See this? You see that? We're gonna go smaller to about the size of a jelly bean. These guys are incredibly small. They're born blind, deaf, hairless, and their lower legs and their tail are often not formed yet. And that is why the pouch is so important. That baby will climb up into the pouch by pure instinct. It will latch onto the teat and start to nurse for several months. In fact, it's not even gonna poke its head out for the first time until it's around 4 to 5 months old, and not jump out for another month after that, and will not be independent of the mother until it's a little over a year old. We're actually couch raising a joey right now. His name is Obadiah, and he just celebrated his first birthday about a couple weeks ago. And he is huge. He's getting way too big for his bag pouch, but he still gets a bottle. These guys are still not independent yet. He's slowly being introduced into our mob, and he's a big fan of lounging in the yard with the girls. Now they're a little indifferent to him, but they'll warm up to him. But another incredible natural talent that God has given to the kangaroos is that as a female, Naima has the ability to do something called embryonic diapause, which means if she feels like it, Naima can actually pause her pregnancy, which is incredible. So what that means is if Naima has an egg that is fertilized into an embryo and is developing in her womb, and she decides that it's not a good condition for her to give birth, maybe there's a drought, or maybe there's not enough food, or there's predators in the area, or maybe she already has a joey in the pouch and can't give birth to another one, that's no problem. She can just pause development in the womb. And they can do that for several months. In fact, Naima here paused her pregnancy on us for about 6 months. We had a male with us, and he left, and 6 months later, out popped the baby. Where did you come from? And so that is an ability God has given them to ensure that every single joey that is born survives adulthood. So it's an incredible ability that God has given them. Here's Naima, her favorite treat. So, all right, we're gonna send her back behind stage to move on to our next animal. So everyone say bye, Naima. And Naima does love the stage, so it might take her a moment. All right, for our next animal, we're moving across the world again. We're stepping out of Australia and going back to South America. We're gonna go on to a dry environment, more of a deserty environment. We're gonna meet a very important little predator out there. He is an insectivore, which means he goes after insects. And we're actually gonna showcase a little bit of his training here on stage if he wants to participate with us. So we're gonna bring out Mr. Esau when he is ready. Now, we actually did name him Esau intentionally, and that's because Esau in the Bible was pretty hairy.
Wow.
So this here is Esau the hairy armadillo. Yeah, I can take him. Hi, buddy. So this here is Esau. Esau is one of 2 armadillos we have at the zoo, and he's a little bit of a larger species compared to our other one. But he is an incredible animal. These guys are known for their amazing natural armor protection that God has put on their back. Does anyone have a guess of what this armor is made out of, what the material is? What do you think? Oh, close. It sounds very similar to that, but not cartilage. What do you think? Bone. Actually, there are plates of bone in here, but they're covered by another layer of something. What do you think? Yes, the stuff in your fingernails. It's called keratin. So we have keratin in our fingernails and somewhere else in our body. Where do we have it? In our hair. And that is the same thing covering the plates of these bones of his carapace, which is the name for his shell. So he actually has these bony plates on his shell, and that allows him to curl into a little half circle, half curve, and that is a protection. Now, not all armadillos can curl into a ball. That is a myth. Only 2 species can do that. And unfortunately, Esau's not one of them. But he does have some pretty amazing protection with that armor coating. But what he does when a predator comes after him is he's actually going to look for the nearest hole he can find. He's going to rapidly run to that hole, wedge his body inside of it, and then inflate his body full of air so that he gets stuck in the hole, so that a predator cannot pull him out. And all they're left with is needing that back shell, that very protective armor. Now, there is actually only one predator in his environment that has a bite force strong enough to break through his carapace. Does anyone know what it is? It's the jaguar. That is the only predator that can bite through that natural shell. So an incredible ability that God has given them. Now, we do training with all of our animals, from the big ones to the little ones. Yes, I know. He's very excited.
Kita siya, nagbalik siya.
And one thing that we have to do when doing training is evaluate how each animal is different from one another. One training thing that we do is called target training. And what we normally do for target training is we take a stick with a ball at the end of it, like a tennis ball. And we move that around in the environment, and the animal is trained to follow that stick and boop their nose to the end of the ball. And when they do that, they get reinforced with a treat. Now, targeting works for most animals, but targeting does not work for Esau because Esau has terrible eyesight. He is also a nocturnal animal, and so his eyes work best at night. And in the daytime, you really can't see a target stick. And Esau also has an incredibly short attention span. So I decided I wanted to still do targeting with him, but kind of modify it a little bit. So I decided to do an auditory target. There we go. So I will knock on the stage, and Esau is actually trained to come to that vibration and that noise of the knock. Because despite not having a very good sense of eyesight, Esau has an incredible sense of hearing and smell. So he can smell the insects and he can hear my knocking, which once I do it once, he usually makes it very hard to do it again because he just follows me too closely. I'm trying to run away from him. There we go. It's very speedy, which brings up a good point. Armadillos are incredibly fast, which makes it really easy to escape from predators. And sometimes you'll see armadillos running towards the nearest body of water when a predator is chasing them. And that's because they're incredible swimmers. In fact, Esau here can hold his breath for about 6 minutes. Good job, Esau. So at 6 minutes under the water, he can just hang down there until the predator gets bored and leaves. But if he doesn't want to go for a complete dip in the water, Esau can also jump into a river and inflate his organs full of air and make himself buoyant, or make himself float. And he'll jump in the water and then float off like a little coconut. So these guys are incredible at maneuvering the environment. Now, I am reinforcing Esau with his favorite snack, which is crickets and superworms. He is a big lover of insects, and oftentimes armadillos get into a lot of people's gardens, which they're not very happy of. But they are some pretty good foragers when it comes to getting those insects. Good job. Now, one thing that he does to attack his insects is that he can actually smell them about 8 inches under the ground. And when he smells them, he'll actually jump into the air, nose dive into the dirt, and then rapidly spin like a torpedo and drill down into the dirt until he catches that insect. So he is really cool. Haven't quite figured out how to train him to do that here on stage yet because, like I said, Esau has a very short attention span. We're working on stay, and as you could probably guess, it's not going very well. Good job, Esau. All right, well, we're going to send Esau back behind stage. Everyone say bye, Esau. Uh-oh. Say bye. All right. Now, for all of the animals that you guys have met met today, we've seen some incredible designs by our Creator. But I do want to point out something. All of the animals that you guys have met today are animals that are affected by sin. And that's really important because these animals interact in very interesting ways. We've met some predators, and we've met some animals that use teeth and claws and camouflage to either hunt other animals or hide from predators. And these are also byproducts of sin. Now, was the world like this always? No, in fact, when we look at the first chapter of Genesis, when God created the world, it says that, behold, God saw everything that he had made, and it was very good, very good. Do you think in a very good world, animals would have been eating other animals and using their sharp teeth and claws for harm and pain? No, and that is because we know that God did create the world perfect. It was very good. But unfortunately, Adam and Eve decided to disobey God, which is a sin. And as a result of their disobedience, everything in the world was cursed. That includes all of the animals, all of the
Maning
plants,
gwapo pag
and all of you guys here under this pavilion today.
pagtudlo sa mga
We're all
bata.
affected by that curse
Ay,
of sin.
makaano
We're
sila.
descendants of Adam and Eve. We are sinners by nature, and we are sinners by choice. And as a result, we are
Ano yung mainari pa na-relate?
luckily enough for us is exactly what God said.
Dapat
He didn't
mainari.
decide just to leave the world like this, affected by sin with no hope at all. In
Lamia
fact,
na
he
kay
cared
siya.
so much about his creation that he sent his one and only Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for your sins. And he tells us that if we repent of our sins and believe in him, that forgiveness will be granted to us, and we are able to receive forgiveness from our Father and restore that relationship that was broken. So I hope that encourages you guys. God does not intend to leave the world like this forever. We have a lot of pain, death, disease, suffering, heartbreak in the world today, and these are all byproducts of sin. But God says that one day he will restore all creation. The Bible tells us God intends to create a new heaven and a new earth, and we have a lot to look forward to in that restored creation, especially when we look at how the animals are going to be acting in that restored creation. You can look at verses in Isaiah, and it talks about how the lion will lay down with the lamb, the leopard will eat grass like the oxen, and the little children will play with the venomous cobras and venomous adders, which are very dangerous snakes. And yet, the Bible says they will have no fear, because that is also a byproduct of sin. So I hope that is exciting to you guys. I get really excited when I think about that. These animals are not always going to be acting in sin. They are going to be restored like all creation that God promises. But like I said, one of the only hopes that we have to see that restored creation is because God sent his one and only Son to die on the cross for your sins. Now, I think we're actually going to meet our last animal here of the day. And for this last one, we've actually saved one of the biggest ones for you guys last. So we're going to be meeting a very large animal that comes from northern Africa. And we're going to bring him out with his trainer and see if he wants to do a little bit of training here. So we're going to meet Mr. Thomas. And Thomas is called an African crested porcupine.
Porcupine.
Now, the African crested porcupine is actually the largest porcupine species in the world. So he is a pretty big guy. Now, Thomas here was actually born here at the Ararat Ridge Zoo about 3 years ago. So we were able to hand raise Thomas with his twin brother Caleb. And so we've been able to do a lot of training with him here at the zoo. And so you'll see that we have trained Caleb to wear a harness. Now, do you guys think that all porcupines act like Thomas does? No. Do you think you could get a harness on a wild porcupine? No, and that's because they have tons of spikes on their back. These are called quills, and these are also made out of keratin, the same material that the carapace of the armadillo was made out of. Wild porcupines actually can be very unpredictable, but also they're built to defend themselves. These guys have an incredible defense mechanism with their quills, and they are not going to mess around with these quills. And has anyone ever heard that a porcupine has the ability to shoot their quills? Yeah, does anyone think that he can shoot his quills? Well, you guys here in the front might find out. He actually cannot shoot his quills. That is a myth. I'm not sure who came up with that. But the quills are actually very similar to how your hair grows. And while it would be really cool if you could shoot your hair at your friends at will, you cannot. And neither can the porcupine, but he can use it for defense. Now, porcupines don't have it out for everyone. You guys are not at risk of him randomly charging you and trying to poke you. Thomas is actually going to give a ton of warnings when he is upset. The first warning a porcupine will give is they're going to flare their quills up really large, and that makes their body look a lot bigger than it actually is. It's a little bit of an illusion. If that doesn't work, he's going to start to rattle his quills. He has some special quills at the base of his tail. They're a lot thicker than the rest. They're called rattle quills. And unlike his other quills, they're actually hollow in the middle. So when he moves them together, they make a really loud racking noise. And that is a loud auditory warning. If that doesn't work, Thomas is going to start stomping his feet, hissing, barking, chuffing, making all types of warning noises. And if the predator still does not get the hint, Thomas is going to turn around with his quills facing towards the predator and charge full speed backwards. He's going to ram those quills into the predator, and at that speed, when he pulls away, those quills are going to be so deeply embedded in the predator, they're going to pull out of his body and stay stuck inside of the predator. So that is very painful. That can cause a lot of damage. Now, there is actually a difference between old world porcupines like the African cresteds and the new world porcupines like we see here in North, Central, and South America. Does anyone know the difference with their quills? New world porcupines have something extra on the end of their quill. Does anyone know what it is? It is a barb. And those barbs make it really easy to go in and incredibly difficult to tear back out. It's going to cause a lot of tissue damage as that quill is pulled back out. So that is an incredible design in the quill to maximize pain and to get a predator to leave them alone. Now, one really cool thing about their quills is that scientists thought these are pretty unique designs, and they actually looked a little closer into them, and they discovered that these quills are covered in a natural antibiotic covering. So that if a porcupine accidentally quills themselves or their partner, they're not going to get an infection and they're not going to die. So that is an incredible design that we can see in these animals. And we've actually been able to look at these quills and mimic their design to create medical staples out of porcupine quills because they're natural, they're biodegradable, and they have that antibiotic covering on them. So it is a really amazing thing that we can turn something that is used as a defense, as a byproduct of living in a world affected by sin, and use it for something good, like helping patients who need medical staples. So it's a really incredible design. Now, porcupines are very intelligent. So you guys can see, Keela's been doing some targeting on stage. Remember how I was talking about targeting with our armadillo? Well, this is a real target stick, but he actually has a modified target stick because, like the armadillos, porcupines also have incredibly short attention spans. So he actually has some bells at the end of his target stick, and that helps him to focus in on where that target stick is asking him to go. But he's able to do a lot of things, which is really exciting for us as his keepers. He's a big sweetheart. He loves cuddles and ear scratches, and his favorite treats, which is butternut squash and peanuts. So he's a big fan of all of those things, and that just makes it really rewarding for us as his keepers to do husbandry care with him and medical care, and just to make sure we have a good relationship with our animals. Alright, well I hope you guys have enjoyed learning a little bit more about our animals and meeting our talented animals here at the zoo. If you guys would like to stick around, you're welcome to ask our trainer some questions. But for your guys' safety, we do ask that you stay behind this yellow line. And I'm going to bring our leaf insects a little closer and our porcupine quills if you want to look or touch these things. So if you guys have any questions, we'd love to talk to you here at the end. But I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation, and please enjoy the rest of your day. So I can keep on.